Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. It is Wednesday, July 23rd. We have a packed No Huddle Rodeo for today. A new number one from Salinas. People rising in the ranks from Salinas. A bull rider and a steer wrestler both get on the right side of the bubble. And speaking of Wright, Stetson, Wright, and Wacey, Schalla are in a dogfight at the top of the PRCA bull riding world standings, and they added another chapter to that fight last night in Cheyenne. It's all coming up here on No Huddle Rodeo. We are presented by Justin Boots and Runyon's Fine Furniture. Let's go to first what we know for certain, where there will be a new number one, and that is on the head side of the team roping. And the team roping continues to be incredibly interesting. So let's get into it. Tanner Tomlinson is now number one. He briefly held that number one spot over Derek Begay in June. Derek Begay took it right back, but Tomlinson and Graves, they won the Silver State Stampede about a month ago. They won the finals, at the Snake River Stampede. Now they are the champions at California Rodeo Salinas. They win about $11,000 there, and they did it by simply not making any mistakes. It's 5 rounds in the team roping in Salinas. They were 48-5 on 5. They beat Wyatt Bray and Peyton Bray by about 0.3 of a second. And again, they only placed in 2 of the 5 rounds. That 48-5 comes out to about 10 seconds a run, which is fine in Salinas. But again, it just comes down to catching all 5 there, which brings me into now. Tanner Tomlinson is number one. Travis Graves is number 2. And Graves is about 3,000 or 4,000 back of Coulter Todd. Tomlinson is about 4,000 ahead of Coulter Todd's partner, Derek Begay. So I've talked a little bit before in the past about the potential split partnership situation. But if Tanner Tomlinson and Travis Graves come in 1-2, 2-2, 2-3, something like that, something to keep in mind is this performance in Salinas, because the NFR is the same in a lot of ways, where if you catch all 10, you've got a good chance to win the NFR average, just like if you catch all 5, you've got a good chance to win California Rodeo Salinas. And if you enter number 1 or number 2 and you win the average, that's a pretty good recipe to potentially win a gold buckle. And it is something Tanner Tomlinson has done before very recently in his last appearance at the NFR in 2023, roping with another veteran in Patrick Smith. He was able to win that NFR average title. And again, I mentioned it's been back and forth between Tomlinson and Graves, Begay and Todd. So we're going to flash up the stats real quick and just run through them here. Who's got the edge in certain places? And there's a couple things that really jump out. One is the only place Begay and Todd have the advantages in that catch percentage, 68.6 to 65.1. Both of those very impressive, toward the top of all team roping pairs in the PRCA. But if you go to what might matter at the NFR, if they do both catch all 10, because Begay and Todd have recently won the NFR average as well. But who can go faster more often? Look at those 4.5 second or faster runs. 17 for Tomlinson and Graves on the year, just 4 for Begay and Todd on the year. And then you go to the go round wins, same type of story, 10-6. And so when it comes down to making those money runs, yes, the average time looks the same, but when it comes down to who can really rear back and make that big time run, win a round when they need to, a la Wade and Thorpe to get back in contention like they did in 2023. We saw Driggers and Nogueira get back in the race in round 8 last year by winning a round. Will Begay and Todd have that in them and not just catch all 10 at a 5-2, 5-5 type pace, which they have done before, again, to win that NFR average? That'll be really interesting to follow. But as I've said before, it's going to be really hectic, especially if it stays close in the team roping. It might be a lot like last year where there's just a lot of scenarios to crunch. But if you look at it right now, even though it's close at the top, Tomlinson and Graves have the advantage statistically across the board over Begay and Todd. Now let's go to some big beneficiaries in the race for the NFR in two events, in the steer wrestling and the bull riding, because the Salinas champions there were both huge beneficiaries of a big payday. Mike McGinn, a dominant performance in the steer wrestling. He was top three in all 4 rounds. He won over $15,000. He was the highest paid timed event athlete in Salinas, and he is already looking at potentially the best finish of his career. He's made more money than he ever has in his career now. With that win in Salinas, he is over $71,000. His previous career high was $63,558 in 2022. He finished number 20 that year. And this is a guy who's 31 years old and has not really been particularly close. Again, I said 20 was his best career finish, but the last 5 years, he has finished in the top 40. And sometimes all that matters is, can you get one big win that pays you $10, $12, $15,000? Well, what is key for Mike McGinn, and what may be the difference between finishing 30 in the world like he has in the past and finishing number 15, which he could potentially do this year? He has won Salinas and he has won Clovis. And so jump from number 22 to number 13. If we look back at it, this could be the clearly defining win that brings him to the NFR. If you're looking at it just as the race to a certain number, I would say Mike McGinn's got to win about $40,000 more dollars, get to $110,000 on the year to be safe and make sure he is in to his first national finals rodeo. On the bull riding side of it, Jordan Spears goes from number 18 to number 12 by simply riding 2 bulls in Salinas. He was one of only 2 guys to cover 2 bulls in Salinas. He won the long round with 89 points in Salinas, and he's a good example of just what can happen in the summer in bull riding, why bull riding is really the event more so than any of them, with ground money, with how few bulls get ridden sometimes. That can really just be a tale of 2 months, 2 seasons, whatever it may be. Because if you look at Jordan Spears in July, he is 8 for 17, 5 rides of 85 plus points, 85.5 point average score, 2 go round wins. That'll get it done if you do that for the entire season. But before that, he was just 3 of 17, which caused him to slip. But you ride 5 more bulls in a similar time frame, you win a big rodeo at Salinas, boom, no problem. And now Jordan Spears, who was number 32 at the beginning of July, so he was number 18 at the beginning of Salinas, was number 32 at the beginning of July. So those 8 bull rides have moved him up 20 spots in the world standings. And he goes from not even being a factor in the race for the NFR to now being on the right side of the bubble at number 12. This is a guy who didn't make the NFR at all between 2020 and 2023. Now he might go in back-to-back years in 24 and 25. That would give him 6 qualifications in his career. Now I want to continue to talk about Stetson versus Wacey. So we're going to go through everything that happened last night, but as it stands right now, Wacey Schalla, $283,000, Stetson Wright, $270,000. The next closest cowboy is Tristan Hutchings at $186,000. So these two continue to establish themselves as the best in class in PRCA bull riding. And again, just talking about the fight they're in, the dog fight they're in, Stetson Wright wins round 1 of the Cheyenne Extreme Bulls, the inaugural Cheyenne Extreme Bulls. He rides for 92.5 points, but right behind him, Wacey Schalla's 90.5 himself. Now, last night, Stetson rides for 89 points. You combine that, 181.5 points. So Wacey Schalla has to be 91 to tie. He's the very next bull rider after Stetson rides for 89. He's the very next bull rider, the very last bull rider. He's got to be at least 91 to tie, 91.5 to win. And he delivers with 91.5 points. And so what does that mean? Not only has Wacey Schalla now won 28,000 toward the world standings in Cheyenne and 50,000 toward the world standings in Calgary, 78K total toward the world standings in the last 2 or 3 weeks there at the 2 biggest rodeos. But When Stetson Wright won $10,000 for winning round one in Cheyenne on Monday night, he had gotten within $4,000 of Wacey Schalla. And so Wacey Schalla was riding not only for the Cheyenne title, but also to keep his number one ranking. Because let's say he bucks off there, Stetson wins all that money. Stetson wins, and he would end up winning $30,000. Wacey would be nowhere close to that. Stetson ends up getting a $20,000 advantage on him in Cheyenne. But instead, Wacey rides his bull, wins the round, wins the average, both of those checks worth over $10,000. And now he completely flips it on him. Instead of trailing in the world standings, which he would have if he didn't ride that bull. If he didn't ride that bull, he'd be trailing by $10,000, $15,000. Instead, he still leads Stetson Wright by $13,000. And so I want to just get into these numbers quick here, because the numbers tell a different story than what we saw in terms of who's making the money. But I also want to contextualize those numbers that the PRCA world standings do not care how many bulls you ride. They do not care how many bulls you ride for 90 points. They don't award world titles that way. They award world titles for who wins the most money. And so when it matters the most, Wacey Schalla has won the most money. But look at these stats. Let's go to Stetson first. 18 of 28 for an average score of 89.3 points. 17 of those 18 rides, 85 plus points. 9 of those 18, half of them for 90 points. This is all since June 17th. 12 go-round wins. That's 2/3 of his qualified rides. This is not exaggerating. One of the best stretches of bull riding probably in pro rodeo history. Last year, the leader entering the NFR in PRCA bull riding and 90-point rides was Tristan Hutchings. He had 6 for the entire season. Stetson Wright has 9 in 5 weeks. Half of his qualified rides in the last 5 weeks have been 90-plus points. Now we go to Wacey. Wacey's riding really well. He's number one in the world for a reason. 12 of 24, 83.7 average score, 2 90-point rides, 2 go-round wins. If you have a stretch over 5-6 weeks where you ride 50% of your bulls, and 1/6 of those rides are either a 90-point ride and or a go-round win, you're in really good shape. But all that to say that Stetson has made up a little ground, yes, in that time. But in any other scenario, he would be number one in the world by a mile based on how much he has won, about $125,000 in 5 weeks. The problem is Wacey Schalla in there has won about 100,000 himself. And so Wacey doing everything he can to keep pace with Stetson. And again, it's come down to not just who's riding the most bulls, but Wacey has the 2 timeliest rides. He won the Cheyenne Extreme Bulls. He won the Calgary Stampede. And so when we look back at this world title race, which now to me looks very clearly like it's going to be between Stetson Wright and Wacey Schalla, unless Tristan Hutchings has something to say about that. This stretch, and maybe just those 3 rides, the ride in Calgary to win it, and these 2 in Cheyenne, because those combined to pay him $70,000-ish toward the world standings, that might make the difference between Wacey Schalla being a world champion. Because like I said, anyone else in the world, if Stetson was chasing any other bull rider in the world during that time frame, he would be number one by a mile. But I said it last week, and I'll say it this week. Sometimes it's not the Herb Brooks quote from Miracle. It's not the best bulls. It's not the best rider. It's the right bulls at the right time. And Wacey Schalla is riding the right bulls at the right time. And he is handling everything Stetson Wright has thrown at him. So no matter what happens with Stetson, with Wacey, we'll look back and we'll remember this incredible run from Stetson Wright. But we will also remember the incredible performance by Wacey Schalla to continue to hold off Stetson Wright and make the bull rides when it matters the most. So he's showing world championship medal, Wacey Schalla is, no matter what. Because as I've said, Stetson Wright really should be miles ahead of the field right now. But Wacey Schalla, despite Stetson riding for 9 90-point rides and 65% of his bulls and 12 go-round wins in the last 5 weeks, Wacey Schalla is not giving him an inch. That is No Huddle Rodeo for today. We are back Friday for No Huddle Rodeo. Before next week, during the home stretch, we're going to make things a little more sustainable. So a new schedule coming up next week, but new and improved morning kicks as well. We look forward to sharing all of that with you on US Cowboy. Thank you to Justin Boots. Thank you to Runyons. And thank you for joining us. We will see you Friday here on the US Cowboy YouTube channel.